I hope everybody had a good week. I was thinking to myself how quickly time is passing. Just last week was Thanksgiving, and now next week is Hanukkah. You'll see in the newsletter we have a lot of programming for Hanukkah, and also expect a little surprise on Sunday, God willing. And it's a way of remembering our membership to make sure that we're thinking about you. Hopefully you're thinking about us. But let's talk about Parshas Vayishlach. There's a lot to discuss. I like to connect two incidents that might appear to be not really in any way part of the story in a sequence, but it has a connection. We have in the beginning of the Parsha, Yaakov Avinu struggles. He has this wrestling match with the angel of Esav. So obviously it was a very supernatural event. It's not like a wrestling match, what we're used to, but it was these forces that were trying to prevail. And Yaakov Avinu was victorious, except we know that he emerged limping because the angel was able to strike at the Gid Hanasha, which means the sciatic nerve, and Yaakov walked away limping. Chazal say there's a message there. It wasn't just a personal wound to Yaakov Avinu, but it was a metaphor for his future generations, that during the long and dark Golus, the children, they would be vulnerable. And there would be chapters in Jewish history where the children were limping along, that maybe there would be these struggles with Yiddishkeit, assimilation. That was the one area of vulnerability that Yaakov Avinu experienced. It wasn't so much about himself, but the future generations. That's point number one. Later on in the Sedra, when Yaakov Avinu is making his way back to Eretz Yisrael and he's going to see his parents, the Pasuk says that Devorah, who was the nursemaid of his mother Rivka, passes away. Chazal say that was really a reference also to Rivka, that his mother passed away. Very interesting medrash. This Devorah, who was sent by Rivka to have Yaakov return. That was the message, that Yaakov, it's time for you to come home. She sent her nursemaid. Chazal say she was 133 years old. Very strange that somebody of that old age would be sent on a mission. And therefore it's not surprising that on her way back with Yaakov Avinu, she passed away. She was an old woman. Why would Rivka send someone so old to bring Yaakov back? Send a young person who would be able to have the energy for the mission. So perhaps the pshat is that Rivka was worried, getting back to the theme of Golus, that Yaakov Avinu himself might fall prey to the challenges of living in the alien culture of Padan Aram and seeing the likes of her brother Lavan. She knew what he was all about, and the culture was so dangerous, antithetical to Torah, to what Yaakov's home was growing up and the house of Yitzchak and Rivka. If Yaakov would see somebody who represented the Masorah, the tradition of old, and that was Devorah, because she was an old lady, that image, the presence of Devorah would bring Yaakov back immediately and give him that inspiration that he wanted to return to his roots, to what he was all about. And if we take that message and now we combine it with the beginning of the Parsha, that yes, during Golus, we know this is the story of Jewish existence in exile. The rates of assimilation is very dangerous. Intermarriage, Rahman al-Islam, it goes on. And we're all affected by it in some way, shape, or form. But the antidote, if you're looking for a way of combating it, is to retain that connection to the past. Those who had close relationships with their grandparents, especially grandparents who were from Europe, who had that training, that type of upbringing, those American kids, and myself among them, who saw what it was like to see an older person who was steeped in chesed and understood the real Jewish home, the Al Tahem, that has left a profound impression on my generation and my parents' generation in ways that really have kept us, Baruch Hashem, connected. And that's really the role of a parent and a grandparent, not just to educate and to inspire, but to represent that figure that figure from a different time, because that's the way it goes. Dor holech v'dor va, generations supplant each other. But we represent the models that hopefully will keep our children and grandchildren connected during the Golus. And the hope is that we can survive the Golus, and that was the promise to Yaakov that he would. Vayovo Yaakov Sholem Yershchem, that Yaakov came out of that battle and his limp was healed. The children in the end would be all right. That was the promise. So it ends on a very good note, but it's a message of responsibility to the parents and the grandparents to be the role models. Everyone have a good Shabbos.